All right, well, welcome to today's community session and thank you for participating. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available for those who are unable to participate today. So here's our agenda for today's session. First, for those who don't know me, my name is Phil Arnold. I work as a community planner for Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. I've been appointed as a plan facilitator for Williamstown for the local rapid recovery planning process. We're going to do a brief review of what LRRP is, take a look at the defined study area for this project, and share with you the results of our data collection and survey of local businesses. We'll then take a look at a few examples of some potential projects, and we'll have a little bit of time at the end for some brainstorming and additional projects. If you have any ideas or suggestions after today's session is over, I'm also going to share a link with you that just gives you access to a SurveyMonkey survey so you can submit project ideas anonymously. That survey is going to be open through June and we'll incorporate those results into the final plan list, which will be presented in August. So first, a quick description of the local rapid recovery planning process. This is a statewide program being administered by the Department of Housing and Community Development, or DHCD. It was open to all communities in Massachusetts, and 125 towns and cities opted in. They were then paired with plan facilitators. BRPC is also assisting Great Barrington, North Adams, and Adams with their own rapid recovery plans. So the process is broken out into 3 phases, as you can see here. Our diagnostic phase has drawn to a close, and we'll share those results today. Then we'll move on into plan development, focusing on at least 10 viable projects. We're going to be prioritizing quick, lower cost interventions in this program, things that can be implemented in a 3 to 12-month timeframe. It's important to note that this grant does not include funding for implementation, strictly for planning at this point. Part of our work will be to identify potential funding sources to make these projects happen. And we are also expecting that the state will consider the types of projects we identify as they shape their next round of COVID-related assistance offerings. So here's a map of the study area for the project. The 2 main commercial corridors within the study area are Spring Street and Water Street. And the projects we will select will likely have a positive effect on the surrounding neighborhood, but for the purpose of the diagnostic phase, this is the footprint we focused on. Next, we'll share some results from our data collection. The next slide shows Williamstown statistics, and the following ones are specific to the study area that we just looked at. So relative to other Berkshire County towns, Williamstown has a large population and a very young median age. The household size is fairly typical, as is the percent of workforce participants. In part because of Williams College, residents tend to have high educational attainment, and the largest age group in Williamstown is comprised of residents aged 20 to 24, which is very atypical of Berkshire County, where most municipalities are challenged with an aging population. And like all Berkshire County municipalities, Williamstown is predominantly white. However, there is a greater racial diversity in Williamstown than in most other Berkshire County municipalities. Now we'll take a look at the assessment of the physical environment within the study area. First, a focus on the public realm. So the public realm is anything outside of private ownership or control and accessible by members of the public. One way to visualize this would be anything from the base of a building where it meets the sidewalk out towards and including the street in front of it. In BRPC's assessment of the public realm, we found a range of conditions, as you'll see here. Sidewalk and lighting received an A grade, roadbeds and crosswalk received a B, and wayfinding and signage received a C. This will impact some of the projects we propose. Additionally, there are some statistics you can see on the left of the screen regarding traffic volumes and parking. And for a small study area, downtown has moderate to high traffic volumes and ample parking. Next, we'll take a look at the private side of the physical environment. Unlike the public realm that received a range of grades, the private realm received an A in all categories. This includes windows, outdoor displays and dining, signage, awnings, facades, and lighting. There are a total of 58 storefronts and over 60,000 square feet of both ground floor retail and office spaces within the study area. As part of our diagnostic phase, we interacted with organizations who act as stewards on the downtown commercial district in one way or another. So now we're going to talk about administrative capacity. So these include the Williamstown Chamber of Commerce and the Williamstown Cultural District. Each has its unique strengths as well as parameters to what should be considered responsible for. Depending on which projects end up on our final list, any combination of these entities could help move certain projects forward. All right, and lastly, some notes on overall business environment. This slide presents information gathered during our data collection, as well as some information gleaned during the business survey process. There are some general statistics on the left that summarize the number of businesses, storefronts, and vacant storefronts, along with some information about available space and average rent prices for commercial space. On the left, we begin to look at survey results, and I'd caution that this information is based only on a small sampling of those who responded to the survey. The survey was open for about 3 weeks and we received 27 responses. So while this does not represent the majority of establishments in the study area, we do consider the responses to be indicative of the overall experience downtown. As you can see here, more than half of the respondents generated less revenue in 2020 compared to the prior year. And the same proportion also had fewer on-site customers. The ways in which the pandemic affected downtown organizations varied, and the chart here includes a range of possibilities. Many respondents likely experienced more than one of these impacts, aside from a decline in revenue, expenses related to safety measures, or to establish an alternative mode of sales and delivery were frequently a part of the experience. And only 11% reported that they were not impacted in any way out of these categories mentioned. Respondents were asked to rate their satisfaction with elements of the current conditions downtown. Overall, a high level of satisfaction was found across the board. All choices received a satisfied response, and regarding safety and comfort of customers and employees, respondents said that they were very satisfied. We also attempted to gauge the degree of interest in various strategies to improve the downtown experience. This slide focuses on the public realm strategies. Generally, zoning and other regulations were less of a focus than improvements related to things like parking, public spaces, and seating. This slide focuses on private realm or public and private combination strategies. Marketing and cultural events and outdoor commerce rated highly. Renovation of storefronts and facades was a lower priority for respondents and may need to be achieved through a targeted process with problematic properties. All right, so at this point, I'd like to show a very rough draft of our project list. So this list is going to be refined during the next phase of the LRRP project. And it's going to involve more involvement from the community. This is just an early list just to solicit some feedback from attendees in this meeting. And you can feel free to offer up any additions as well. I'll give you a few moments just to read the slide, but then otherwise I'd like to open up the meeting for discussion. I can go back through any slides that I went over too quickly if you want to see them again, but otherwise we can talk about some potential projects.
Can I ask a question while we're waiting?
Please.
Yeah, my name is Andy Hoagland. One of the earlier slides, one of the things that scored lower on the satisfaction level was transportation, public access, biking, that kind of thing. And I was curious why that would not have showed up as a potential project area.
It certainly could be. Again, these are just, it's just a very rough list of projects. And generally, again, we're looking at short range projects. So the type of transportation improvement would have to be pretty specific. Sometimes those projects can take years to accomplish. And again, we're looking at ideally under a 1-year timeline, but there certainly could be transportation efforts that could fall into that category.
No, yeah, I didn't realize you had a sort of a 1-year horizon, so that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, DHCD put that parameter in place, because some downtown revitalization efforts can be, very lofty, involving complete street redesigns, sidewalk redesigns, that type of stuff, which would take typically years to do. So they're looking for as short term as possible. Ideally, we can get some of these going this summer.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Sure. I did make a note though about smaller transportation projects. I think that is a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure there are any. I didn't realize you had the 1-year limit, but yeah, I think most of the things that I'm assuming people are complaining about or not satisfied on would be longer term things like public transportation or bike lanes or something like that, which take a while.
Hmm. Does anyone else have any comments, or again, I can revisit slides if I went a little too quickly. Or if Susan and Andrew have projects that didn't make the list or that they've thought of since we developed our very rough draft, to mention those too.
Well, thank you, Phil, for going through all of this. I continually think of ideas going forward. As you indicated, some of them are loftier than others. But I think, as we talk about wayfinding and signage and that kind of thing, I would like us to think about an overall community branding approach. And again, that is probably a little outside of the scope of this, but to Andy's point, I think it's important to include some of our loftier goals on this list, as it will live with us for years to come.
I suppose I should have specified that before. So yeah, so DHCD was aware that, inevitably some of the bigger projects are what people are going to be attracted to. So based on the size of Williamstown, they want to have a minimum of 10 projects. And within that, we have a little bit of wiggle room. A couple of those projects can be the bigger, grander ideas, but generally they wanted us to focus on the small stuff. But we can certainly stick a couple couple big ones on the list.
Good.
Susan, can you give us an example of what your lofty ideas are and see if we can maybe make them less lofty and fit?
Well, I mean, granted, you know what, I would love, again, as a branding exercise to truly bring in an outside consultant and go through a full-on community branding, similar to what North Adams did a number of years ago. Trying to get all of our signage and postings and wayfinding to be consistent throughout the town. And that not only will take branding, but then it'll take expenses of actually constructing the items. You know, as I've said to Andrew, I want to blow up Spring Street and redo the sidewalks and make them bigger. And, you know, he's tempered me on that one. So
Not opposed. It's just it's a bigger undertaking than this program.
Of course.
Can get us to.
I'm keeping my eyes open now for all state grants that are coming through. So
Yeah.
Good, that we appreciate that.
And nice to see some things on here we've already been thinking about, like the outdoor seating. I know Sue's been working on getting some more outdoor seating for our summer season, which will be wonderful.
Phil, in terms of what satisfies the standard, are we allowed to spend money on studies? Like, even if we can't actually do a transportation project, can we study it? Or if we can't do the branding, can we hire a consultant to start working on that kind of thing?
So this program that Phil is helping us with is truly strictly the idea forming and the project building. There is no financial access to actually do the projects. But what we're hoping to come out of this is a somewhat of a master plan kind of idea. I mean, not truly, but having a list of projects and of goals that when the financial grants and opportunities arise, we can very quickly insert our priority list of projects. So the answer to that, I guess, is we don't have any money right now. Andrew and I just applied for a small one from the state last week that we'll hear about in a month or so, for just an outdoor dining community gathering space. But the idea is to be ready to apply when we see the funds coming through. So we can have anything on our list.
Yeah, no, I was just worried because, you know, in theory, a master plan process for the whole town, you know, will start. There'll be an economic development part of that, which probably might cover some of the things you're talking about. So I was just curious whether this program could somehow support at least that element of the town-wide master plan on economic development topics.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Hi, I'm Ken Geets. Have a business on Spring Street called Where'd You Get That? About 21 years ago, they had completely redone Spring Street, and they had held a pile of meetings about how we would like to have the street done. And I had made a suggestion at the time regarding sidewalk murals. And it was interesting to see that on your list here. And I don't know how that's worked out for other communities. Have they been successful in doing something like that? At the time, unfortunately, it was pretty well laughed at. They thought that was way beyond the scope of what they wanted to do on the street, even though they had quite a number of artists on campus in their arts programs. And you could take panels of the sidewalk and turn those into artistic endeavors. But they didn't think that that was feasible at the time. And I was just wondering if other communities have tried the sidewalk murals and what the success of it was.
To my knowledge, they have been successful. So as part of this, a lot of BRPC staff have been attending these trainings that are held by DHCD, and they show projects from all across the Commonwealth. And from what I've seen, they have been largely successful. So I don't know if that's an impact of COVID, that we're sort of rethinking outdoor space and what we want these downtown areas to look like. But yeah, it's a little disheartening to hear that it sort of fell on deaf ears when you presented it, because from what I've seen, it just, especially with the increases in outdoor dining and closing down certain streets to make more walkable areas, that goes hand in hand with having a more visually pleasing sidewalk than, just gray concrete. So
At the time, it was thought it might be able to compete with the Bridge of Flowers, so that it would really help attract people so that they would actually walk down the street and take a look at the different murals and things that were on the pavement.
mhm.
But there were other priorities.
Well, I think it's a great idea, and especially again within the parameters of having a short-term, relatively inexpensive project. I mean, that's right in the wheelhouse of what we're talking about. So I
You
think
can
it's
change
an
this
excellent
every
idea.
couple of years. You don't have a problem in doing that. You just have to chip off the concrete that you'll be putting an art piece into, if that's the way that people go. I don't know exactly what other communities have done as far as sidewalk murals are concerned, but I would think that they could be changed all of the time. You've got a lot of people on campus that have a lot of artistic ability and people who want to show their type of artistic ability.
Yeah, the ones that I've seen were relatively temporary, so it wouldn't be replacing existing concrete, but in different mediums you can have art attached to what's already there, whether that's painted on, or I think some of them even had some sort of like vinyl that can be laid down and removed relatively easily. But yeah, without ripping up concrete.
Yeah, no ripping up concrete. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Ms. Bean, is this focused just on Spring Street, or is other parts of town within your scope?
No, let me I'll go back to that
Yeah,
map.
I missed the first 2 minutes, I think, which is probably where you said this.
Here we go.
Oh, okay.
So Spring Street's the main area, and then sort of the secondary one would be water,
Yeah.
but everything within those borders.
Well, because I was thinking about the vegetation ideas, whether, street plantings, I'm not sure there's much room on Spring Street for much more, but Water Street has more of a sidewalk, green strip area. So if people want to make Water Street look more verdant, we do that, I guess. I'm not sure if people care about it, but I've been thinking for a long time about having actually a more organized tree or bush planting along Route 2 going towards North Adams. It's like a 3-mile strip or something, just to make it more attractive, which is definitely out of your scope.
No, but to have some more green space on water is I think is a good idea. That even came up within the grading that we were doing. So we had to do a bunch of field work, and we're essentially provided a rubric by DHCD to score all these things. And that was one of the things that scored a little bit lower, was just because some of the green spaces on Water Street were a little bit lacking. So it's a good thought.
And was the 77 businesses that you had for your survey, or the scope, that's 77 in town or in this area?
Within the study area.
Really? Wow. Okay. I never would have guessed that high of a number.
Isn't that crazy? But if you start looking at the businesses on the second and third floors of the various businesses in the district, it adds up pretty quickly.
Yep,
Wow.
that's what drives the number.
That's
Those upper stories.
very surprising.
Mhm. Yeah, I think Susan, when you applied, the initial number was 60 something, and we were a couple lower than that, but yeah, it was pretty close. Okay, does anybody have anything else? Doesn't seem like it. Okay, so there is going to be a follow-up to this meeting. Again, this is sort of just a pretty quick overview of phase 1, which is largely the data collection and the survey results. And phase 2 is going to be more focused on some community engagement and really trying to refine that rough list of projects. So the follow-up meeting, the focus is going to be on the projects. So you should expect the list to be a lot longer by then. And it'll probably also be broken up into different categories. So public realm versus private realm. And then we'll probably also divide it also just by the type of project. Are they street greening projects? Are they infrastructure related? So the next meeting will provide more clarity on that.
And I will definitely give a shout out to Phil's Google form or whatever you're going to do, form stack, for submitting project ideas, because I think that you are our best thinkers. You are the people who live and breathe the street, and we'd love to hear what specific things the community would like to see.
Definitely. Yeah, so Susan, I will send this information your way. And again, this is a very simple survey. It's just one question and it's anonymous. And it's just asking if you have any ideas for projects. So yeah, I would hope that the turnout for that will be pretty good, just because people, it's unrestricted. People can say whatever they want. So so we'll see what happens.
I'm sorry, one more thought, sorry. The Water Street garage site, Andrew and Susan, is that something that might fit in here in terms of making that a more useful parking space?
Yeah, I think short-term, like Phil was saying, we should have long-term projects on here, a few, but we should try to do a lot of short-term stuff. And absolutely, I think there's some short-term impactful things we could do to make that parking lot a little more attractive, wayfinding, et cetera. We could also think about the park across the street too.
Yes, yeah. Well, when does that site sort of open up for whatever it's not? Is it still being used for construction staging, or is that all done?
It's still being used for construction staging at the moment.
Okay,
So it's I'll have to check in with Maximilian. It might be a couple of months.
Well, it sounds like it'll be free within the study or the scope of what we're doing today. So I guess I'd throw out there, are there things that could be done in the short term to make that more useful for the businesses on Spring and Water? Okay, sorry to hold you up. Thank you.
All right. Well, I guess, yeah, so we'll wrap up for today. And again, I'll be in touch. I'll have some more specific dates for our next steps. DHCD periodically just releases more information. So we're still getting details about phase 2 and what we're going to do in that phase. And yeah, as soon as I know more about that upcoming meeting and what that's going to look like, I'll send the information along.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time, Phil.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.